So your loved one was just diagnosed with dementia. Now what? If you're like 90% of the people I talk to, you probably received the diagnosis for your loved one and maybe a follow-up appointment or a good luck wish and not much else. But there are some really important things to consider doing after receiving that dementia diagnosis. I'm going to go over 4 tips. Number 3 is probably the most important, especially since in all of my conversations with Careblazers, every Tuesday I release a new video of me talking with a Careblazer. I ask them, what is your number 1 piece of advice that you would give to a Careblazer watching the video? And I would say the majority of them mention what I'm going to share in tip number 3.
Hey Careblazer, real quick, if you're watching this when it's live on Sunday, October 17th, this is your last day to register for the Make Caregiving Easier 14-Day Challenge. I offered this challenge about 6 months ago. You guys loved it. Many of you joined and asked for me to host it again. I'm hosting it again. We get started on Monday. You have until today to register. There's a link below in the description, or you can just go to makecaregivingeasier.com. I can't wait to get started.
All right, here are my 4 tips. Number 1, educate yourself. This can be really overwhelming in the beginning, and I've had a lot of Careblazers tell me that after receiving a diagnosis of dementia, maybe they joined a support group, maybe they joined my free Facebook closed group, and they were so overwhelmed and scared at what they were reading from other people that they just totally shut down, removed themselves from those groups because they weren't there yet, and it made them really nervous to be there. So when I say educate yourself, I want you to educate yourself in a way that best supports you. It might just be reading a pamphlet from the doctor's office about dementia. It might just be going to the Alzheimer's Association website and downloading one of their booklets. It could just be reading a book, or it could be joining a support group or an online group to hear what other people are going through, simply so it helps you prepare yourself. It helps you realize, is this normal? Is it not normal? Oh, somebody else is going through that? I thought it was just me. Okay, that was a really good idea. That person did. I'm going to remember that. So when my loved one does that, if they ever do, I know how to respond. One of the best ways to ever learn is from other people who have already done it, who are in it, who have gone through that stage and can help you as well. But in whatever way possible, educate yourself on the disease process. Learn about it. Watch a YouTube video. You don't have to, drink from a fire hose. Like, you can do it in increments, bit by bit, but certainly shutting down and not wanting to hear another word about it or think about it, it's not going to help your situation. Tip number 2, support yourself. I know you're not going to like hearing this tip, but it is so very important. This caregiving journey can last a long time. I don't know how long it's going to last for you. Nobody does. But I know that it is much, much easier if you have support from yourself and from other people. Surround yourself with friends and family. To whatever extent you feel comfortable with, you can share with them what's going on. But by all means, there's no award, there's no special badge of honor that you get for doing this alone. In the beginning, if your friends and family know about this, they might likely say things like, let me know what I can do to help, or if there's ever anything I can do to help, right? Have in your mind some things that you can say to them. If you could, pick up mom's prescriptions when you're at the pharmacy or at the store, that would be a huge help and save me an errand over the week. Or I'll never turn down any of your home cooking. If you ever want to cook a meal, we'll be happy to take it. Like, I've talked to Careblazers who have told me they don't want to ask for help because they want to save their asks for when they're really going to need them, or they don't want to necessarily take the help because right now they can do it. Like right now you might be feeling, I got this, I can handle it. You don't have to wait until you absolutely need the help to take the help. You could just take the help. It's very uncomfortable for a lot of people, but I promise you, Careblazer, it's going to make things so much more easier down the road, and I want you to normalize and get used to allowing people to support you and help you. And in terms of fostering a good relationship with a support system, it could be as easy as a weekly text message to a friend, or a weekly coffee date to a friend, or a phone call, or something like that. It doesn't have to be this big event, but just keeping relationships in your life, because a lot of times on this journey, relationships start to drop off, right? And so I want you to take an active role into fostering your support system. Tip number 3, plan. This is probably the most boring one to hear, but it is the most important one to hear, especially if you've watched any of my interviews I've done with other Careblazers. I would encourage you to start a folder with their medical records that you have, their current medication list, current doctors, phone numbers, pharmacy numbers. Getting financial and medical power of attorney forms completed sooner rather than later. Thinking about living wills, doing a will, thinking about trust or estate planning or anything like that. Do you know the passwords? If your loved one was the one who managed all the finances, do you know the passwords of how to log in to the bank or pay the bills? Is your name on bank accounts? If not, do you have financial power of attorney? Like, at some point when your loved one loses the ability to be able to do these things or remember these things, the system makes it really hard for you to be able to have access to it. And that's because there's a lot of scammers out there who try to take advantage of vulnerable older adults, right? So even wives and family members and husbands and spouses and adult children have a hard time being able to help their loved one with dementia down the road because these things weren't done in the beginning. If your loved one is still able to, you might want to talk to your loved one, and this is where the living will comes in. What kind of care do they want to have? I just did an interview with a Careblazer recently. It hasn't posted yet at the time of this video, but like, she knew her loved one did not want to be on a ventilator and her loved one did not want a feeding tube, right? And so when she was faced with having to make that clinical decision, even though other people had different opinions, including other healthcare providers, she was confident in knowing my husband would not have wanted this, right? So these are like the most boring things and people don't like to talk about. It's also pretty hard to talk about because by doing it, you're acknowledging there's going to be a time when your loved one will no longer be here or will no longer be able to do these things. It's the biggest thing you can do. And I heard somebody say once, and I can't remember who said this, but it was on a podcast I listened to, and they said, planning for your future, planning for your death, right? Planning for your loved one's death, that's the greatest gift you can give to your family that's left behind. It's such a nightmare when it's not done. All right, tip number 4. This is your tip, Careblazer. This is what I want you to do. Tip number 4 is like a bonus tip. I want you, because I imagine there's some of you watching right now who have had the diagnosis for a while, you've been caring for your loved one for a while. What is the one tip, your biggest recommendation that you would encourage or recommend every Careblazer do after they got the diagnosis, after their loved one got that diagnosis? What do you recommend a Careblazer go do? I want you to comment that below. It's going to help so many other Careblazers. I think it's going to be one of the most helpful parts about this video, actually. All right, Careblazer, I look forward to reading some of your tips below, and I'll be back next week with a new video as always. If you haven't already, hit the red subscribe button, totally free, and it helps other people out there in the world find these videos. I really appreciate it. All right, bye.